Here we go. You ready for some Talmud study?
Hey, that's what I'm here for.
This is a little bit different. And we're on page 86b in the Tractate of Shabbos. Now you may ask, why are we studying the Tractate of Shabbos if I promised to study about the Shavuos? Because Shavuos doesn't have its own, the holiday of Shavuos doesn't have its own tractate. It's incorporated in the works of Shabbos. Okay? That's how many times the Talmud worked. Now here, what you have is you have 4 pages, and 2 of them are like my book. You could look at the Hebrew and follow the English, or you could just follow the English, or you could follow the Hebrew, whichever one you like. Okay? We're going to pick it up about 3/4 of the way down where it says Tanu Rabbanan. If you see where it says the Tuf Reish, the 2 dots down here. Yeah, 2 dots. And in the English, it's going to be 86b, our rabbis taught. You see you have 86b? Yeah, the right column, right-hand column, our rabbis taught.
Well, right here.
Okay, right there. Now you see, unlike, you got it? Now this is unlike Kabbalah class. Here's actual, where we're dealing with actual solids here versus metaphysical stuff. So you have to pay attention because the Gemara is going to take sharp twists and turns. But let's get going. Okay? Tanu Rabbanon. Our rabbis taught, B'shishi b'chodesh, on the 6th day of the month of Sivan, Nitnu Aseres Hadibros, LeYisrael. God gave the 10 commandments to the Jewish people. Okay? So we say on the 6th day of the month of Sivan, meaning that was 50 days from Pesach. So on the 6th day, God gave the 10 commandments to the Jewish people. Okay, fine. Rabbi Yossi says, B'shiva boy. No, it wasn't the 6th, it was the 7th. Okay, so he argues on exactly which day of the month the Torah was given to the Jewish people. Omar Rava. So now Rava is going to come and explain what is the basis of their argument. Where do they really argue? He says like this: the Kuli Alma, everybody. Now the Kuli Alma, just to tell you, is, you see, it's Aramaic, because the Talmud goes, if you're following in the Hebrew, you'll see it goes from Hebrew to Aramaic, from Hebrew to Aramaic. It goes back and forth and back and forth. So this is an expression when he says the Kuli Alma, the entire world, means everybody, both the rabbis and Rabbi Yossi, agree. B'Rosh Chodesh, on the 1st day of the month of Sivan, Asu L'Midbar Sinai. They came to the wilderness of Sinai. Okay? That means I have to pay it here. So on the 1st day of the month of Sivan, everybody agrees they came and they settled in the wilderness of Sinai. Okay? Now how do we know this? Why is it that everybody agrees that? He's going to bring 2 verses that are going to be equal. Ksiv hacha, because it's written here in our parsha when it comes to talking about when the Jews came. It says, B'yoyim hazeh, on this day. Now the key word here is hazeh. B'yoyim hazeh, on this day, Bo Midbar Sinai, the Jews came to the wilderness of Sinai. Okay? So the key word in this verse is hazeh, on this particular day. Uksiv hasom, and another verse, it says, now this verse is not referring to when the Jews came to the desert, but this verse is referring to the first commandment when God gave to the Jewish people. That what was the first commandment? About Rosh Chodesh, about the laws of sanctifying the new moon. That Nisan should be the first month of all of the months of the year. So he says over there in that verse, which is in Exodus chapter 12, he says, now listen to these words, HaChodesh hazeh, this month shall be to you, lachem, to you, Rosh Chodoshim, the beginning or the head of all of the months. Okay? So what is he saying? Let's go back to the verse. HaChodesh hazeh, this month shall be lachem, to you, Rosh Chodoshim, the head of all of the months. So what is the common denominator between the 2 verses? This. So since he says, Bayoim hazeh, and in the other verse he says, HaChodesh hazeh. So we have the common word of hazeh, and this particular month and this particular day. So now Rava wants to make a likeness, a connection between the two verses. This is called a Gzeira Shava. A Gzeira Shava is the same verses. Okay, same verses. So he says like this: Mala halon Rosh Chodesh, just like there happens to be the first day of the month, Afkan Rosh Chodesh. Here too is the first day of the month. Okay, so now we're setting up the parameters. So we're on page 86b, on the right-hand column. We're reading over there. So now everybody agrees that when did the Jews come to the wilderness of Sinai? The first day of the month of Sivan. Okay, that means both Rabbi Yossi and the rabbis agree to this. Both agree to this. Okay. Then he says another. Okay, now he's going to set up another. He's going to set up now the parameters. So on one hand, we have Rosh Chodesh accounted for. Now we're going to account for something else. The Kuli Alma, and everybody agrees, both the rabbis and Rabbi Yossi, B'Shabbos Nitna Torah L'Yisrael, that on the Sabbath the Torah was given to the Jewish people. Okay, so we know that it was definitely on Shabbos. How do we know that? How can we know that? Because he brings what we call like Gzeira Shava, two likeness of verses. Ksiv Hacha, it's written here. Where is it written? In the Ten Commandments. Zachar es Yom HaShabbos lekatri. Remember to keep the day of Shabbos holy. Right? Okay, so the key word here is going to be Zachar. Remember. Remember to keep the day of Sabbath holy. Okay? Uksiv Hasam, and then it says further on, Vayomer Moshe el Ha'am, and Moshe said to the people, Zachar es Yom Hazeh, remember this day. Now what was this day referring to?
Sabbath.
No.
The day the Torah was given.
Thank you very much. The day the Torah was given. He tells the Jewish people, Zachar, remember es Yom Hazeh, this day that the Torah was given. This is separate from the remembering from Sabbath.
Really?
Now this is separate from the remembering of Sabbath. It's two different verses. The first verse says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. The other verse says, and Moses spoke to the people and he said to them, remember this day that God gave you. If you want, we want to find it over there. We could find it over here. It's in chapter 20. Of Shemos.
So then it's two reasons that day is very important.
That day that we're talking about, we're trying to figure out where exactly the argument comes in, because we have an argument between Rabbi Yossi and the rabbis as to when exactly the Torah was given. One says the 6th, one says the 7th. We want to find out where the argument lays. What is the basis for this argument?
We wouldn't have anything to study if there wasn't.
You got it. You said it.
Wouldn't be Jews if we didn't have two opinions.
If we didn't have two opinions. So he says. So he must say it again in 19. Not in 20, but it must be verse number 9. It must be 19. He says, remember this day, because this day is going to be a huge day for everybody here, right? Because the day of the giving of the shofar was that made the Jewish people. Just run through it here, see? If we could pick up what the verse is here. Because right he says Sham. So that means there. We'll find it. Okay? Before we finish this class. Not this class, before we finish the whole section. We'll find the verse. Okay? But the bottom line is, he says, Moses speaks to the people, Zachar es hayom hazeh, remember this day. Okay? Now, what was the verse we had before? Zachar es Yom HaShabbos lekatri. Remember this day of the Sabbath to keep it holy. So the key word was Zachar, remember. And then when the giving of the Torah, he also uses the word Zachar, which tells us that what? the Torah was given on Shabbos. So we have two statements that everybody agrees on. Everybody agrees. What do they agree? That the Jews came to the wilderness of Sinai on the first day of Sivan, and that the Torah was given on Shabbos. Okay? So those two facts are irrefutable. Irrefutable. Then the Gemara goes on to say, Malahalon, just like there, right? Just like there, Batsumei Shel Yom, he spoke about on that very day. That means he spoke about keeping the Sabbath holy on that very day. Afkan, here too, Batsumei Shel Yom, that he spoke about it on that very day. So remember this day. So this day is, just like he spoke about Sabbath there, he spoke about Sabbath here as well. So remember this day of giving of the Torah. Okay. So now we're going to find, so we're arguing. If both agree they came on the first, and both agree that the Shabbos, the Torah was given, right? Yeah. So where is the argument? Where do they argue? So now the Gemara is going to get into where they argue. Ki pligi, when do they actually argue? Bikviya deyarcha. They argue on the fixing of the new moon. When Rosh Chodesh was. Okay? Because if we say that, let's say Rosh Chodesh was on Sunday, so we have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Shabbos, right? That would be the seventh day. We go according to Rabbi Yossi. He says on the seventh. If Rosh Chodesh is on Monday, so you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Shabbos. Okay? So the sixth day happens to be on Shabbos. So that would go according to the rabbis. Because the rabbis agreed that it was on the sixth day. Rabbi Yossi Sovar, Rabbi Yossi argues, or he holds, Bechad B'Shabba Ikva Yarcha. On Sunday, the new moon was established. Now we know from previous classes that we had here in the Talmud, that in the olden days, back in the good old days of the Talmud, even before biblical times, how did they didn't have calendars?
Lunar.
So they it was a lunar month. So whenever they saw the moon, they established Rosh Chodesh. They had witnesses. So Rabbi Yossi argues on that particular month, on the month of Sivan in the year 2448, according to the creation of the world, that month Rosh Chodesh was on Sunday. Okay, it was on Sunday.
Forever.
What?
I'll be here forever.
Oh, you definitely will be. And on Sunday, what happened? He didn't give them any instructions. That means, before the giving of the Torah, there were 3 days of separation. There was God speaking to Moses. There were things happening that whole week. But so he argues that on Sunday, when the Jews came to the wilderness of Sinai, they settled at the wilderness of Sinai. That day he didn't give them any instructions. He let them relax. Why? Mishum chulsha de urcha. Because of the weariness of that day, the exhaustion of their journey. Now don't forget that they had traveled in 50 days from Egypt all the way down to where Mount Sinai is. So let's say Mount Sinai is where it is right now, at the southern part of the Sinai Peninsula. So it's a journey. I mean, people, they walked, they were tired, they had cattle, they had families. So they came they came that day to the wilderness of Sinai. Moses said to them, don't worry, today is a day of rest, relax. That was when? Sunday. Okay? That was on Sunday. He didn't give them any instructions. Okay? Betrei b'Shabbat, on Monday, Amr Lahu, he said to them, and now we quote now from the verse. No, of course I couldn't find that verse because I was looking for love in all the wrong places. I got to boost up my prescription on my glasses. Of course, it goes back to verse number 13. He says, Zacharis,
We're all going to buy a pair of
I'm telling you, it's no joke. It's no joke. It's Zachan Veyis to say.
Give him a free pass to
Zachar. It says like this: Moses, God spoke to Moses, saying, "You should sanctify to me all the firstborn of man and beast." Then Moses says to the people, "Zachar seyom hazeh, remember this day which you went out of Egypt, mi beis havadim, from slavery." So just like he spoke to them, just like he told them, remember this day. This is the day that you left Egypt. He spoke to them on the 15th. The same thing was true Zachar as Yom Shabbos Lekatre. He spoke to them, remember the day of Shabbos on that particular day. So that's why he makes the equivalency of Zachar and Zachar. All right, just to clarify that thing. So according to Rabbi Yossi, we're now following Rabbi Yossi's line of thinking. Sunday they show up. What they do on Sunday?
Rest.
Nothing. Monday he tells them this. What does he say to them? Va'atem tiyu li mamleches kohanim. You shall be for me a kingdom of priests. Okay? So he's starting to give them instructions. That happens on Monday. Okay? Betalsa on Tuesday, Omer Lahu, he says to them, mitzvahs Hagbolah. The mitzvah, he informs them of the order of setting aside boundaries. Okay? That means what happens? Because we're on the next page now. We're on page Zayin, on top of page 87A. Okay? Okay? So now we're on 87A.
So Rabbi Yossi just went goodbye.
No. We're still following Rabbi Yossi's line of thinking. Just 87A.
On Tuesday, it's in the new okay.
Okay?
Rabbi Yossi's in this game.
So he's still in the game. So according to Rabbi Yossi, Sunday nothing. Monday he told them you're going to be a kingdom of priests. On Tuesday he commands them and concerning the laws of the boundaries. Meaning, what laws of boundaries? When God says to Moses, who's going to go up to Mount Sinai? Who went up?
Moses.
Only Moses. Only Moses. Anybody else who touches the mountain is going to die. You'll die. So he set up boundaries. He said, you go to the top. Aaron stays here. The elders stay here. Everybody else stays here. No one should go past these boundaries. Because anybody who goes past these boundaries will surely die. When does he tell them that? According to Rabbi Yossi, he tells them that on Tuesday. There's like a timeline we're trying to figure out here. So on Tuesday, he conveys to them the order to set boundaries. Don't go past this boundary. Barba, on Wednesday, Avad Prisha. What they did was they separated themselves from their wives. Because he told them also, Vikidash them, you shall sanctify yourself. Meaning that they would not have any relations for the next few days in order to remain pure, concentrate on what's going to happen. Hashem is going to give you the Torah. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 3 days of separation, and then the giving of the Torah. Okay? Yeah. So let's go back again. Follow Rabbi Yossi's timeline. Sunday they show up, nothing happens. Monday, they're instructed they're going to be, something special is going to happen. They're going to be priests and they're going to be kingdom of, they're just unbelievable. On Tuesday, he tells them to set the boundaries. And on Wednesday, they separated from their wives. Okay? So that's the timeline according to Rabbi Yossi. The Rabbanon Savrei and the Rabbanon argue, Betrei b'Shabbos ikva yarchem. On Monday, there was Rosh Chodesh. Okay? The new moon was established on Rosh Chodesh, the first day of the month, was on Monday. Betrei b'Shabbos, on Monday, loy omer lehu v'loy midi. He said nothing to them. Mishum chulsha de'urcha. Because of the weariness of the travel, right? Because their exhaustion from the journey. Okay, so here they agree also that on the first day when they came, but they came on, when did they come? Monday. Thank you. They came on Monday. Betalsa on Tuesday, Omer Luhu, he said to them, V'atem tiyuli. On Tuesday he informed them that you're going to be to me, I have chosen you to be a holy people and a kingdom of priests and every good thing. Okay? And that happened on Tuesday. Okay? Okay, now, so far, so Daddy agrees. So Daddy agrees. Yeah, they were different. They're fighting over one day. Barba, on Wednesday, Amr Lahu Mitzvahs Hagbolah, he gave to them the separation of boundaries. He said to them, you shall set boundaries. That was on Wednesday, according to the rabbis. Behei, on the 5th day of the week, which is what? Thursday, Ovid Prisha. They went ahead and they separated themselves. Okay? They went ahead and they separated themselves on Thursday, Friday, and Shabbos. Okay? So they follow the same timeline except one day later in the week. So basically, what is the timeline? The day you show up on Rosh Chodesh, nothing is done. On the first on Monday, nothing gets done. On Tuesday, he informs them that they're going to be priests and wonderful people. On Wednesday, he tells them that they should set boundaries. On Thursday, they separated themselves from their wives. They went Thursday, Friday, Shabbos, 3 days, and on Shabbos they got the Torah. Okay?
So the issue is still when was Rosh Chodesh?
Yeah, the issue is still when is Rosh Chodesh. Because Rabbi Yossi argues Rosh Chodesh was on Sunday. The rabbis say Rosh Chodesh was on Monday. Now, the difference here is going to be is the 3 day. This is going to be the crux of the argument here. Why? Because it tells us over here, okay? We go back to chapter number 19, back where he gives the Torah. He says to him like this. Then he tells them, we're going to be a wonderful people. And remember these words. The Jews come back and they say, oh yeah, everything you say to us, we're going to do. God says, great. Great, great, great. Then he says like this. Vayomer Hashem, listen to these two verses because this is really going to be the issue here. This is verse number 9. I'll start from number 9. Hashem spoke 9. I'm going to, don't follow because I'm reading now from the Chumash. Okay? So listen to this outside. Hashem spoke to Moses, behold, I come to you in the thickness of the cloud so that the people will hear as I speak to you, and they will also believe in you forever. Moses related the words of the people to Hashem. Hashem said to Moses, now here, go to the people and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and they shall wash their clothing. So tell them they should be holy today and tomorrow. Let them be prepared for the 3rd day. For on the 3rd day, Hashem shall descend in the sight of the entire people on Mount Sinai. Okay? So let's get this clearly what the rule was. Hashem said to Moses, tell the people that today, Vikidashtem hayoim u'machar, you shall sanctify yourselves today and tomorrow. So how many days are sanctification? 2. And on the 3rd, you've got to be ready to roll, right? Because on the 3rd day, I'm showing up. Okay? So according to Rabbi Yossi, okay? According to Rabbi Yossi, who says Sunday they showed up, right? Monday they did nothing. Tuesday he gave them the commandment, you'll be priests. Wednesday he set the boundaries. Thursday they separated from their wives. So it was Thursday? No. Well, when did they separate from their wives? Wednesday, sorry. Wednesday they separated from their wives. So it was Wednesday, Thursday.
And then Shabbos.
Where's Friday? What happened to Friday? Right? It should have been Wednesday, Thursday, Torah given.
Right.
Because so we got a problem with Rabbi Yossi's timeline. According to the rabbis, we're good, right? Why? Because the rabbis say Monday we show up. Tuesday, we do nothing on Monday. It's a lazy day. Tuesday, Moses tells them you're going to be priests. Wednesday, they set their boundaries. Thursday, they separate themselves from their wives. Friday is day 2, Shabbos. So it's 1, 2, and be ready for the 3rd day, right? Go to the people and sanctify them today, which will be according to the rabbis, what day? Thursday. And tomorrow, which is Friday. Let them be prepared for the 3rd day, for on the 3rd day,
Which will be sad.
Hashem will descend and give you the Torah. So it makes more sense now. Whose opinion looks a little better at this juncture?
So poor Rabbi Yossi.
Yeah, poor Rabbi Yossi. What can you do? What can you? He's fading. He's fading. But he's going to come back. He'll be back. Don't worry. He's not going away so easily. Rabbi Yossi is not giving up so easily. Because the Gemara is going to ask a question.
His strength.
What? He's gathering his strength. Listen, you know what? Everybody's opinion is important. That's why we have the Talmud, because even though he's a lone voice, even though that he's not the majority, but here he's not going to give up so easily. So he says like this. So the Gemara goes back to say like this. Meisvei, I want to ask you a question. It says in the Torah, Vikidashtem hayoim u'machar, that God specifically tells Moses, Vikidashtem, you shall sanctify yourself today and tomorrow. Kasha Rabbi Yossi. It's a question according to Rabbi Yossi. And this is where our friend comes in.
AT&T.
And here he comes in. Todd, here, come, can you have a seat right next to the teacher? You have to be right next to the teacher.
Also get your picture.
And you could give him, oh, he doesn't want to be on
I
film.
can't be on camera on my current weight. Okay.
Yeah, you always have to remember.
Camera adds 10.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
That's just what I need.
That's what we just
Shavuos.
needed. Okay. So he says, Meisvei, this is a question according to, why am I sitting in front of the camera? If what Mark says is true, I need a 10 extra pounds. Trust me, I don't need a 10 extra pounds. I wish the camera took off 10 pounds, but it doesn't. It doesn't. So he says, Meisvei, let's ask a question. V'kidashtem hayoimu mocher. You know what you're going to do, Kenny? Quickly read while I'm talking.
Okay.
Read the English from here, from our rabbi's taught. This down here, and then pick it up over here, and we're somewhere in this area.
Okay.
So like this, you'll familiarize yourself with what's going on. So he says, Kashel Rabbi Yossi. It's a good question according to Rabbi Yossi, right? Oh, good evening. No problem. I think we're gonna have to cancel our plan of moving the class. No.
Okay.
What? Come a little closer. We have extra copies here. Oh, I may just.
You can sit. over here.
Tim is always. I don't know.
He got room here.
Here's one. Now, what I suggest is read page 86, the right-hand column, and then pick it up on top of page 87, so you'll know what we're talking about. You see, we see page 86b. We see where it says on the right-hand side, our rabbis taught. Look, yeah. Read that down while I'm speaking. Read it down.
86B.
We started from where it says our rabbis taught.
And then we.
You see that? So read that to yourselves while I'm explaining, and then you'll catch up. And we're on the top of 87. So he's so
Just ask one question.
Sure.
Shavuos comes in the middle of the week,
right. When?
next month.
Yeah, Shavuos moves around all the time. There's no set day for Shavuos. The only thing that's set is the day of the month. It's always on the 6th of Sivan. But the 6th of Sivan, like every other day in the Hebrew calendar, changes year by year.
Right.
Some days it's Saturday, some days it's Monday.
got the 13
but there is,
month
there's a 13-month
I
calendar.
thought that Shavuos was the giving of the.
Yeah, but we're talking about only that first giving. We're trying to establish the first day when the Torah was actually given, not when Shavuos will be every year, because the day of the week changes. No, it can only be 3 or 4 days in the week. It can't be every single day. Make no mistake. You see, even though the calendar seems random to us, it's not like the first day of Pesach could be any day of the week. There's rules. The calendar has very specific rules. Like Aloya Du Rosh, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah could never ever come out on a Sunday, Wednesday, or a Friday. You'll never have the first day of Rosh Hashanah, Sunday, Wednesday, or Friday. Just doesn't work out that way.
Second day.
Could be the second day, but not the first day. Loi bedu Pesach. The first day of Pesach you're never going to have the first Seder Sunday night. It's never going to happen. Why? Because Sunday you could relax, and it would be normal to have the first Seder on a Sunday night. No, so the calendar works out that you're never going to have Sunday night the first Seder. You're never going to have the first Seder on a Wednesday, and you're never going to have the first Seder on a Friday. That's it. That's what's gonna happen. Loi bedu Pesach. But so therefore, even though that it seems random, that you think of the 6th day of Sivan, but there are rules and regulations to the.
So we're just talking about.
We're talking about the first time. We want to know when the Torah was given, on what day. Rabbi Yossi says the 7th. No, Shabbat. Everybody agrees. Everybody agrees that Torah was given on Shabbat. Okay. The argument is, was it given on the 6th day of the month or on the 7th day of the month? Now that's important to know, because you have to follow Shavuos every year afterwards. What day should we follow Shavuos? Either the 6th or the 7th. So he says like this. So Meisvei, we ask a question. We're holding like in middle, about 8 lines or 9 lines down. You should sanctify yourself today and tomorrow. Kashel Rabbi Yossi. We have a good question according to Rabbi Yossi. So no, first of all, you have to understand that the moment you get your name in the Talmud, you're not a pushover. So even though they could ask you a question against your opinion, you're just not going to take it sitting down. You're gonna fight back. You will fight back. Amrullah Rabbi Yossi. So Rabbi Yossi says, and this is an unbelievable statement that he says. Look what he says. Yom echad ha'isiv Moshe midatei. Moses added 1 day on his own volition, on his own opinion. Hashem said to him, "V'kidashtem hayom u'machar." Hashem said to him, "You shall sanctify yourself today and tomorrow." So God wanted 2 days of preparation, and on the third day they go. Moshe says, "No, I'm going to add one more day. Let them sanctify themselves Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and then Saturday will receive the Torah." Haisiv la Moshe midartei. Moses added one thing from his own understanding. Because really the question is like this. You ever run a race? Okay, on the count of 3. Now what is it? Is it 1, 2, 3, go? Or is it go on 3? 1, 2, and go on 3. So it's very important to know that, especially if you're using guns. Is it 1, 2, 3, go? Or when you say go on 3, is it 1, 2, and go? That's the argument here. See, the Chachamim say, the rabbis say it's 1, 2, and go on 3. Rabbi Yossi says, no. It's 1, 2, 3, and go. Okay? So it's the actual question is where does the and come in? Is it 1, 2, and go? Or is it 1, 2, 3, and go? So it's important where you put the emphasis because you don't want to be, okay? Right? Yeah, don't think too much. Don't think too hard about that. Let's get back to the Gemara because I'm myself confused. The Tanya, as we learned, you see, because Rabbi Yossi brings a strong argument to himself because we learned in another part of the Talmud, Gimel Dvarim, 3 things, Asa Moshe midatoi, Moses did from his own opinion, V'hiskim HaKadosh Baruch Hu imai, and God agreed with him. Okay? 3 things Moses did. Think about this. Let it seep in for a moment. What this means. Hashem commanded him something. He himself went ahead from his own opinion and changed it. And at the end, God agreed with him. Okay? What are they? Right? He added 1 day to the Perisha, 1 day to the separation from his own opinion. And God said, good job. O Pirish Mina Isha. This is not so easy to do, but he separated himself from his wife, meaning that the moment that God started to communicate with him, that God started to appear to him, he said to himself, how am I going to do this? Here I am having relations with my wife, then you have to go to the mikveh after relations because you become impure afterwards, and God is always showing up. You never know when he's going to appear. So Moses made a decision on himself, Upirish Mina Isha, that he separated himself from his wife, right? Till he passed away. Now that was looked and frowned upon by his sister. His sister frowned upon her because what happened later on is that there was a time when there were a lot of people prophesying in the camp, and people came running to Moses and said, stop them from prophesying. And Zipporah was there, and she said, "Oh, poor ladies, poor wives." And her sister said, "Why? Why poor wives?" So Zipporah told them, because once they become prophets, they're going to leave their wives. And Miriam says to her, "Why is that?" He says, "Because Moses left me. Moses separated himself. Never divorced her, but he kind of moved his tent out to the field because he never knew when God is going to communicate." So Miriam said back to Zipporah, look at him, he thinks he's the only prophet. Why does he have to do it? So that's why she ended up getting leprosy, because she misspoke against her little brother. And Moses did this understanding and knowing that it's very important to do this. So he says, so the second thing that he did from his own, and we should not try to emulate him. You see, it's not, the idea is, what, Moses separated himself from his wife. We'll do the same thing. Many of us maybe would like to do the same thing. Maybe they would like to do the same thing. We think about doing the same thing. But you know what? It's not a good thing to emulate. It's not like, the guy once came to a Jewish guy and he said, "Oh, did you hear about the greatness of Jacob? You know the greatness of what Jacob did? Jacob worked 6 years to marry his wife." So the other Jew says, "You know what? I would work 7 years to get away from my wife." He says, I would work 7 years, they should take my wife away. Okay, not like Jacob. So here Moshe says, Rabbi Yossi says that 3 things. So what was the first thing that he did? He added a day. What was the second thing that he did? He separated himself from his wife. God did not command him to do that. And the third thing is, V'shiberes haluchos. He broke the commandments.
broke the tablet.
That's it. He broke the tablets. Now you remember that story. When he came down and he saw the Jewish people were worshiping the golden calf, he took the tablets on his own volition. God did not say anything to him and busted them right there and then. Okay? Now, the first thing, let's analyze the three things. Okay? The first thing is, okay, God says to him, you should separate yourself today and tomorrow. So Moses said, you know what? He's a rabbi. He understands the people. And he says, you know what? In order to be super, what's going to be really happening is going to be super holy. You know, I mean, giving of the Torah, this is not like a Yom Kippur, a regular Yom Kippur. This is something that is unbelievable. I mean, if you think about it, it's a once in a lifetime that this happens. It's a once in a never going to happen again. So he figured it's not a bad idea. I see it. I see his logic to it, because that we're always encouraged to build fences around the Torah. If the Torah says keep the Sabbath day holy, the rabbis added a number of different rules and regulations, even though they may be permitted on Shabbos. Let's say, for example, like horseback riding. Maybe horseback riding is really permitted on Shabbos, but because horseback riding could lead you to do something that would desecrate the Shabbos. Swimming is probably permitted on Shabbos, but since it could lead you, so therefore the rabbis prohibited it. That is called Vasyus Yog La Torah. Make a fence around the Torah. So Moses was following along in that tradition and saying, God said 2, I'm going to add 3. Okay, fine. The second thing that he did, separating himself from his wife, was a personal decision. I'm sure it was not easy for him because he loved Zipporah. We know that the whole story of he met her at the well, and she took him into her father's house. He was a foreigner in a strange land. He knew nobody where they were living, and he loved her, and he had children with her, and he had sons, and there's no reason to believe that there was any friction in the family, but because of the seriousness of his position. Because you know what I mean, it's going to take him away from home every time he has to run to the mikveh, go back, run to the mikveh, do this. He said to himself, it's never going to work out. So he told her, listen, you know what? Sometimes you have to pick career over family. And this was definitely a career move because Moses was the leader, and that's the way it goes. And many times you sacrifice, and this is what he did. He sacrificed his family. Now, he was not unique. If you look at all true leaders, I mean, you look at a lot of the leaders of the Jewish people, as soon as you're elevated to a position of leadership, your family suffers.
Golda
Meir, everybody suffers. There's nothing to talk about, especially if you happen to be the only leader of the Jewish people and the only one that people run to for advice. So you could imagine, your family is going to suffer. Okay, so I can even see that. But then think about the third one. Okay, think about what Moses was holding. This is not tearing up a credit card. So you could cut up someone's credit card. You could get nervous and break a phone. Something like that. You could get nervous even and throw down a siddur on the floor. But you know what Moses was holding here? Moses held a miraculous document in his hand. It's like could you imagine if you were holding the original Declaration of Independence in your hand, the original one. I'm not talking about a copy. But I'm talking about the original one that's like 20 stories down now in the library from Congress. It's buried 20 stories down in thick, together with the original Constitution. Take that, light a fire, and burn it. Could you imagine someone doing that? You couldn't in a million years, you couldn't imagine someone burning that Declaration of Independence, the original one. Okay, because you're holding a masterpiece in your hand. I mean, something irreplaceable. Okay? Take that and times it by 1 billion. Why do I say 1 billion? Because the luchas were miraculous. How were the luchas? How were the tablets written? Moses had a big piece of stone and he engraved in it the words of God. Right? He said, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am the God. So he engraved that. Then he wrote the next one. He engraved it. Now the engraving was through and through. Okay? It wasn't only engraving, so he cut the stone so the letters actually went through, so you could read them from both sides. Okay? All right? It makes sense, right? Because you could engrave and you could make both sides, except for a certain letter. How about a samach? You know what a samach is? A samach is a letter with a piece in the middle. How did that piece stay? How was that a samach? Miraculously, the piece stayed. Miraculously. That's why I say to you, it wasn't a letter of declaration of independence. This was a miraculous thing that God himself, it came from God. He was in the mountain. Now he had it in his hands.
How do you read it from both sides?
No, you can't read it. I'm not going to read it from both sides. But you could see the letters from both sides.
It's a cut. It's a cut through.
It's a cut through. You could see it from both sides.
So the light went through.
The light went through. The light went through. Right? Someone who can read it from both sides. Who knew the thing?
Without the vowels.
Without the vowels. There was no vowels. There was no vowels. Okay. So how did he have? So the first thing I can understand, he had the chutzpah. Second thing, he had the chutzpah. But the third thing, when he had the tablets in his hand, can imagine how did he have the audacity to take upon himself? I mean, he had his shoulders like this, obviously, and he knew God, and he had a relationship with God that none of us have with God,
Or ever will have.
or will ever have with God. So how did he have the audacity to break the luchas? So think for a second, because you know what? One thing, he was brilliant. Moshe Rabbeinu was a brilliant guy, and he made a cheshbon like this. You know what he said? He said like this: if someone commits idolatry, what's the punishment?
Yes.
How do we know? It says where?
I don't know.
What does it say about
I
idolatry?
was told.
No, but what it says where? It says in the Torah, but where in the Torah? The Ten Commandments, right? Where's the prohibition against idolatry? I am God, your God. You shall have no other false gods before you.
Right.
Right? Okay. So Moses thought to himself this. What were the people doing? They were committing a golden calf. Okay. As long as I have the document in my hand, what can God do? All of these people are liable for death because I'm holding the document that is accusatory. That's accusatory, right? Because God reads in the Ten Commandments, you shall have no other gods before you. So what happens? So as soon as God reads the Ten Commandments, all of the people that are worshiping the golden calf are liable for
Death.
What do I do? What did Moses do? He takes the thing and he smashes the tablets in order to show that so that God could not read. It was like tearing up the kesubah. Let's just say, for example, think about this example. I marry a woman, okay, and I write her a ketubah. What does the ketubah symbolize? Our marriage. That we're married, right? I go on a trip, and this actually says in the Medrash. What happens? What does my wife do? She fools around behind my back while I'm gone. Okay? So knowing that if I come back and I see the ketubah, and the ketubah says she's a married woman, what's going to happen? She's liable to get the death penalty because she's a married woman and it's considered what? Adultery. So what does my good friend do? So my good friend, knowing how hurt I would be, he runs and he takes the ketubah and he rips up the ketubah. He rips up my ketubah. I come back and there's no ketubah. There's no ketubah. It's
no
hard.
contract.
So it's hard to prove it, and it's easier to get her off. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu's cheshbon was. If I smash the tablets and God doesn't have this document that he can accuse them with, I can get them off. But if the document still stays there, and God can read, "Thou shalt not have any false gods before me," and look what the Jewish people are doing right there.
Kill them all.
Kill them all. So that's what Moses' cheshbon was. What?
God knew it was in there.
God knew what? No, I know he knew. Of course it's not a perfect solution, Moses, because 3,000 people died at the golden calf. God did strike down 3,000 people. But here, all of them may have been liable. So that's how he had the audacity to do that, because he wanted to get rid of the document, thinking, okay, you know what? It'll be easier to defend them without the document in my hands. And kachava, that's why he did it. Because
Who was she fooling around with?
Who?
His wife.
No.
He was making a statement.
No, that was the example. She wasn't fooling around. Don't.
So was he doing an act of mercy then?
Yes,
He was really
actually doing an act of mercy for the people. He was angry. Now he was angry, but anger is not going to allow him to break the tablets. Anger would have been to take a stick and to start hitting the people over their heads, right? What he did here was an act to save the people.
Exactly.
He said, you know what? Better destroy the tablets and save the people. That's
Quick as he thought it up quick as
that was. You know why? Because he's Moses. That's what it is. That's what it is.
You know, you're talking about the ketubah. What happens if the man goes away and he plays?
I don't know. I don't know. That it doesn't say that. That's next week. I don't know about. That's hey, good.
The moral is know where your ketubah is.
What?
The moral is know where your ketubah is.
Know where your ketubah is. Exactly. First, I told you, a man is not a man can marry multiple number of wives, so he doesn't have to fool around because God knows that men are pigs. So he allowed them the opportunity to marry more than one. So more than one wife.
Sure.
Bigamy, monogamy is not natural. Who says monogamy is natural? It's only Rabbeinu Gershon that got us into this predicament, into this pickle of having one wife. But according to the Torah, you can have a multiple wives, right?
Look
Look at our forefathers.
Look at the Mormons.
Abraham had multiple wives. Only Isaac kept one wife because Rebecca was a tough woman. So forget it. But look at Jacob. Jacob married 4 wives. Moses married 1, but think of the kings. David had 6, at least. Solomon, who knows how many? They had a lot. Samuel.
Ketubah doesn't apply to them.
No, they had a ketubah, but if you were man enough to marry multiple wives, you had to give each one a ketubah. You had to support
And you
each
have to
one.
support
You had to
them.
feed each one. You had to clothe each one. You had to give each one time. Special, a time. I mean, if you're able to do that and they're willing to do that and you think you're going to build a happy home, the Torah says go for it if you want to do that. Yeah.
Go to Salt Lake
What could you
City,
do?
I'll show you.
No, they don't have it anymore. Mormons
Yeah, they had
Mormons are
cheating.
these guys, a few nutcrackers marry multiple wives. Those are criminals. But the Mormons don't have. Mormons are not polygamous anymore. It was part of the agreement to come into the union. They had to give up polygamy. The United States wouldn't accept them.
What the hell have they to give up?
Father-in-law was still friendly with him.
Who, Moses' father-in-law? Yeah, Jethro was very friendly with him.
Even though he knew
Well, he did it for the right purpose. He didn't do it because he was angry or he didn't love Zipporah. And it doesn't say that he didn't come and speak to her or spend time with her, just that he had no relations with her anymore. He didn't have any relations with her anymore. We all know this about Moses. When he made a decision, you could forget about it. I mean, he was a guy that was single-minded. When he put his mind to something like this, and he had very broad shoulders. He understood who he was. I mean, you know what? If Moses didn't understand who he was and the position that he was in, he would never have even attempted to do any of these things. But he understood. It took him a while because in the beginning he was very reluctant to take this job. He didn't want to take this, but once he accepted it, he didn't turn back. It means he went to Pharaoh, and when everybody else left him, and he by himself fought Pharaoh, and he himself was against the Red Sea, and he himself faced down Korach, and he himself faced down, the spy. I mean, he was. And not only that, but he faced down God, because after I don't have to read it to you, but after the golden calf, even after he broke the 10 commandments, God said to him, you know what? Let me destroy them, and I'll make you a people. I'll make you a big. You'll be like Noah. I build the world all over again from you. So Moses says, I don't forget about it. No deal. No deal. No deal. I'm not taking it. I'm not taking this deal. The only deal I take is that I want these people. So God says, are you crazy? These people, the same people that worship a golden calf, he said, these are my people. Where these people go, that's where I go. Where they land, that's why he didn't go into the land of Israel, because they all died in the desert, and so did he die in the desert. But that takes a lot of courage to say that, because you know what? If God says it to somebody else, say, you know what, me and you will go into partnership, forget about all these people, the first reaction is, oh, why not?
It's a big deal.
Yeah, hey, I take the deal. As God is my partner, we could call it Lord and Taylor, but, Lord and Perelmuter, something like that. It could turn out to be a very lucrative thing, right? Could be. You never know. Okay,
Sell stock in that company.
there you go. There, dump the stock in Lord and Taylor. Okay. It was first of all Lord and Schneider, but then he came to America, turned into a Taylor. It was used to be a Schneider. Okay.
Is that supposed to be a joke?
Yeah, of course. It's not real. I don't think it was Lord and Schneider. Okay. So he says like this. Okay, so now it's going to explain. Now he's going to explain the 3 things. He says like this. He added 1 day from his own understanding, from his own opinion. My Dorish. How did he interpret this? What was his understanding? Right? Okay, what verse did he interpret as he says like this? He says like this. Hayoimu machar, today and tomorrow, right? That's what it says in the Torah. Hayoim u'mocher. I read to you again from verse number 10. Hashem spoke to Moses, go to the people and sanctify them today and tomorrow. Hayoim u'mocher, today and tomorrow. So he learned like this. This is the way he interpreted. Hayoim ki-mocher. Today like tomorrow. What do you mean today like tomorrow? What does it mean like a day today like tomorrow? So listen to the end of the sentence. Ma'alemocher laila imoy. Just like tomorrow is a 24-hour period that the night starts it goes with it. Af hayoim laila imoy. Also today there has to be the night going with it. But there's a small problem. Why? V'layla d'ha'idna nafkaloi. But the night of today already had passed. It's already Thursday, right? When did he give it to them? When, according to the rabbis, that it was Monday they came, they did nothing. On Tuesday he told them that they're going to be priests. On Wednesday he told them to separate the mountain separations. On Thursday they separated. So Thursday and Friday, but Thursday wasn't a 24-hour period, right? Thursday he told them on Thursday to separate. Thursday he told them, let's say 9 o'clock in the morning. So Thursday morning missed the night previous, right? It wasn't. Friday was a 24-hour period because Friday started Thursday evening at sunset, right? So he made a cheshbon. You have to have 2 complete 24-hour periods, right? And since Thursday was not a 24-hour period, but when did he start on Thursday? Whenever he told it him in the morning. Let's say 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. That's why he added a day, like an extra day on Shabbos. Shma mina. So they learned 2 days exclusive of today. Okay? So who does that do? Who does that go according to? Rabbi Yossi. No, this goes according to Rabbi Yossi, not the Chachamim. Why did I say the Chachamim? This goes according to Rabbi Yossi, right? Because Rabbi Yossi added 1 day. According to the Chachamim, it's good. It's Thursday, Friday, and then Shabbos you get the Torah. Rabbi Yossi says Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then you get the Torah on Shabbos. So it was Rabbi Yossi who said he added 1 extra day from his own opinion, right? Are we clear on that? Right. Who added a 1 extra day from his own opinion? Moses. According to Rabbi Yossi. So Wednesday, he told them, but Wednesday was only a half a day. So Thursday and Friday were 2 full days, and then Saturday the Torah was given. Okay? No, Moses is Moses, and Rabbi Yossi is the author of an opinion. Rabbi Yossi is an author of the Talmud. Moses, it's funny because Moses, we call him Moses without Reb Moses, and Rabbi Yossi we call him Rabbi Yossi. Okay, because that's the way it works out. Because no one in the Chumash is called Rabbi, right? You don't say Reb Avram, you don't say Reb Yitzchak. You call them by Moses. You just say Moses. Even though if he would walk in here now, what will we say? What will we call him? Sir. Okay, all right. You wouldn't say, hey, Moshe. You're not going to call him like that. What do you think? He's an Israeli cab driver? Hey, Moshe. Okay? So he says, Uminalon, how do we know that Hiskim HaKadosh Baruch Hu al Yadoi, that God agreed? How do we know that God agreed with him? Maybe God was angry and he shouldn't have added the extra day because he only wanted 2 days. And according to Rabbi Yossi, it was Wednesday and Thursday, and the Torah should have been given on Friday. The Leishar Yeshchina, that the presence of Hashem did not come down at Tzarfa de Shabta until the morning of Shabbos. So Shabbos morning, the Shechina came down, and if he told it to them on Wednesday, that means he added 1 extra day on there, right? Wednesday they separated, but you needed 2 full days. So that's how we know that God agreed with him. Then we say like this: O Pirish mina isha, and he separated himself from his wife. My Dorish. What verse did he interpret? Right? What did he interpret? He says Nasa Kal v'chaymer. He applied a minority argument to himself. Now Kal v'chaymer, the words really mean light and heavy, meaning this is the way a Kal v'chomer works. A is bigger than B, and B is bigger than C. So A is, what's A relation to C?
Biggest.
Definitely, right? It's a kal v'chaimer because if A is bigger than B and B is bigger than C, then obviously A is bigger than C. You know, that's basically a logical argument. Okay, so he argued, he applied a kal v'chaimer ba'atzmai when it came to his own self. Omar, he says, Umay Yisrael, just like the Jewish people, Shaloi dibra shchina imohem, that the Hashem spoke to them. Elisha achas, only on one occasion. When did God speak to the Israelites? On which occasion? When? The giving of the Torah. That's the only time that God directly speaks to the people, right? So God, who only spoke to the people one time, the kaval zman, and he appointed them a time thereof. He says, I'm going to show up on Shabbos. Amra Torah, the Torah says, V'hayu nechayim, you shall be ready. Al tikshu, do not come close to a wife, right? Come not near a woman. Okay? Because why? Because God wanted you to be pure and holy on that day that the Torah is given. So he tells you that you must separate yourself from your wife. And he's only talking to them once. And he still wants them to be pure. Moses is now referring to himself. Shekol shah v'shah. Every hour, Shchina medaberes. Hashem speaks to me. Every day God spoke to him. He gave him a law, he gave him this, he told him this, he asked his opinion, he gave him another law, he got angry with him, he gave him instructions. Man, and he doesn't set up a time for me. Never says, hey Moses, how about we meet at 9 o'clock? God shows up whenever he wants to. 6 in the morning, 2 at night, 3 in the afternoon. It doesn't give him any rest. Alachas kama v'kama, how much more so should I be always ready and pure to accept the voice of God? So that's how he interpreted his life to himself. How do we know How do we know that God agreed to him? Because it says, Leich emor lehem, please say to them, Shuvu lechem lo'in leichem, you all go to your tents, uksiv basrei. And afterwards it says, Va'ata poi amadi modi, but you, Moses, you stay here with me. Right? So since he wanted him to stay and everybody else had to leave, so proved that he was in a pure state and he didn't know when God was going to come. So therefore, God said, good, I'm happy. Let them all go back to their tents, but you stay here with me because you did a good thing by remaining holy. And others say, face to face I spoke to him. So that's another verse. Face to face I spoke to him, meaning that God was not angry with him. Had God been angry with him by separating his wife, what would he have said? Moses, go back to Tzipporah. But he didn't. He says, me and Moses, we have this relationship, we're like this. Right? Who else is like this except Hashem and Moses? Nobody. That's a proof that Hashem liked what he did. He agreed. But not everybody. Again, this is not something that Moses acted upon, that he wanted people to emulate him. Because people could also make a kal v'chaimer. Make a kal v'chaimer. I can make a kal v'chaimer in my own life. Madach Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, who was so holy, and he spoke face to face against God, went ahead and separated himself from his wife. Me, that's not so holy. I should surely separate myself from my wife. I should always be in a state of purity. No, only Moses. Everybody else, you do what's normal. Thank God they didn't get into the celibacy business to stay away from your wife. So then he says like this, and the last one, okay, the last one is going to say this. Shiberes aluchais, he broke the tablets, my dorish. How did he interpret it? What was going through his mind? What verses in the Torah did he rely on to break the tablets? And he said like this, Amar, he said, Uma Pesach, just like the Korban Pesach, the animal sacrifice, Shehu echad mitaryag mitzvahs, it is one of the 613 commandments. Amra Torah, the Torah says, V'chol ben necher lo yoichal boy, every foreigner, alien, shall not eat of it. Kol ben nechers, every alien shall not eat of it. Only a Jewish person that is circumcised may eat of the Korban Pesach, but an alien is excluded. Torah Kula, the entire Torah, the Yisrael Mumrim, and at this point, the Jewish people are apostates, because what were they doing? They were worshiping. They were worshiping. Halachas kama v'kama. How much more so they should not have any connection to the Torah. So I'm going to break the Torah. Okay, so I gave it from another point of view. He gave it from another point of view. He said just like they're apostates, they don't deserve it. They don't deserve the Torah, because if one verse, a foreigner, an alien, cannot participate in the Korban Pesach, what if you're an alien to the whole Torah? You're an apostate to the whole Torah. You definitely don't deserve the Torah. And he smashed the luchas. He broke the luchas. So there's two various opinions. I gave mine more, my little opinion. I related the Medrash seemingly for him to make it easier for the Jews. Here in the Talmud it makes it harder, because he was angry at them. He said, you know what, you don't deserve this. I leave for 40 days and this is what you do. So he takes the tablets and he smashes them on the ground. How do we know? How do we know that God agreed to him? Because it says, Asher Shibarta. These are the tablets which you broke. Asher Shibarta, which you broke. Amar Resh Lakish. And Resh Lakish said, one of the great interpreters of the Talmud, what does the word Shibarta? Yasher Koichacha. Good to you, all the strength to thee. Thank you. Sheshibarta, that you broke the tablets, God said to him. Asher Shibarta, Yasher Koyach Sheshibarta. God says, thank you for breaking them, because I myself was angry and the Jews didn't deserve it at that time.
Okay, but then, this to me, you can just take these two opinions and you can take them into modern day way of handling anything in life, whether you're going to have mercy on the people or whether you're going to...
And they're really
It really is a very interesting concept.
Right,
because
right.
It can go...
It can go either way. It can go either way. And really, they're not really that set, they're not really that divergent, because, let's say even if a guy came home, if the king whose queen cheated on him, right? The queen cheated on him, and he came home and he found out that his friend did it, he would be happy. Because even though that she then, let's say she didn't commit adultery, but she misbehaved, the king maybe still loves her and he wants to be with her, but the moment that the ksubah is presented, he's going to have a tough time justifying his coming back to her. But if the ksubah is torn up, even though he's angry at her, but this gives him a way out that he could, make peace with her. The same way...
using their anger and creating shalom bayis.
It's trying to create shalom bayis, exactly. And the same thing was true over here. That Moses' breaking of the tablets is God said, you know what? Better break the tablets and I break them. That's better, right? Just like when they burned the Beis Hamikdash, people were crying. So other people said, why are you crying? It's better he burns the Beis Hamikdash than burns us. Who cares about a building? The building could go up in flames as long as he allows the people to live. I mean, so that's one way of looking at it. So here we have Moses. So here's the beginning of the whole parsha, that we have Moses on his own volition, according to Rabbi Yossi, and we'll see later.